Welcome to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein, talking about the evolutionary, the revolutionary, the inspiration and the perspiration, and those aha moments that change everything. And now, here's your host, Rich Goldstein.
Rich Goldstein here, host of the Innovations and Breakthroughs podcast, where I feature top leaders and the path they took to create change. Past guests include Joe Polish, Ryan Dice, and Roland Frazier. This episode is brought to you by my company, Goldstein Patent Law, where we help you to protect your ideas and products. We've advised and obtained patents for thousands of companies over the past 27 years. So if you're a company that has software, product, or a design you want protected, go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com, where there are amazing free resources for learning about the patent process. And you could email my team at welcome@goldsteinpc.com to explore if it's a match to work together. You could also check out the book I wrote for the American Bar Association that explains in plain English how patents work. It's called the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. I have with me here today Mike Calhoun. Mike is the founder and CEO of Board of Advisors, where he's established a global community of founders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, investors, marketers, and e-commerce moguls. Mike is an advisor, an owner, and an investor in multiple companies. He's worked with numerous products, platforms, and services from the US to Australia. Mike truly has a gift for seeing opportunities to connect people and cultivate synergistic relationships. I'm very pleased to welcome here today my friend, Mike Calhoun. Welcome, Mike.
Oh my gosh, Rich. I'm stoked to be here, buddy. This is going to be a good little session. We're going to have fun. You and I always have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We always do. And you have a gift. You have a gift for connection and conversations are always easy. And as much as sometimes I interview people and it's like pulling teeth, I can't imagine that I have to do much work here. So,
it's one thing I think I do very well is I see the gold in others, right? Mm-hmm. What are the things that Rich Goldstein does so well? You see that? You see that went together? I
saw what you did there.
Rich, ever since I was a little kid, there's one thing I wanted to be.
What's that?
Now I grew up humbly, very humble. I moved out of my house in 11th grade into a barn just so I could finish high school with a little peace and quiet, because the family was it was a little crazy. It was a little crazy at home. Yeah. But there's one thing I wanted to be ever since I was just kind of getting started. You know what that was?
An entrepreneur?
I wanted to be rich. I've always wanted to be you, Rich.
Wow. Yeah, that is an honor. That's quite an honor.
Okay, look, these are dad jokes. They're dad jokes.
Oh, I know.
And I've got a lot of them, and most of them aren't good, but some of them are great.
That's the thing about dad jokes, I think, is that they're generally not very funny. They'll make you roll your eyes, but there's always a kernel of something really clever and funny in there.
What's funny is that they're not so funny, but that the dad telling them thinks that they're funny. So then we end up laughing right along with them. So I guess laughter is a little bit contagious.
Exactly. So, probably with a typical dad joke, the response should not be laughter. It should be more like, I saw what you did there.
Exactly. Goldstein.
That's me.
I got you.
All
right, let's get down into the nitty gritty. You said you were going to ask me all the hard questions that you've never asked anyone else, but now you're going to put me through the ringer.
You can't handle the truth. No, just kidding. So very simple question. Let's start with a really simple one. How'd you get started down the road of being an entrepreneur?
I took my left foot and I put it in front of my right foot. And then I just kept bump, 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 repeating. It was nuts. I just one step at a time, baby. One step at a time. No, I have a pretty interesting little story. So you want to know my first entrepreneurial endeavor? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I do.
All right, man. Let's do it. I used to, so I was always new. I was the new kid at school all the time. Went to 13 different schools growing up. New school for every grade, just about, right? So I was always the new kid and I was always broke, right? My parents were broke and I was broke and I was kind of tired. By 6th grade, I'm like, dude, I want to have some money in my book bag at least. Like, I want to be able to buy that extra milk at lunch. You know, there was a burning desire there. And so check this out. I'm riding my bicycle and skateboard back and forth to school every day, completely independent as a 6th grader, going from Madeira Beach over to Madeira Beach Middle. And there was a big bridge. And right before the bridge, there was this candy. It was called Candy Kitchen. And the owner, the old dude that worked behind the counter, he was famous for making fudge. And he had all kinds of just weird, quirky candies on the shelf. And I found these. It was gum with a candy shell on it, and it was available nowhere else. You couldn't go to the normal gas station. You had to get it at the Candy Kitchen, right? So I used to buy these for a nickel and sell them for a quarter. So I'd buy them for a nickel, load up my book bag, take them to school, and it was like crack, dude. Everybody would buy. They'd buy for a quarter. And my book bag was probably the heaviest book bag you'd ever felt because it was full, literally full of quarters, right? So it might be my best business even to this day. You buy it for a quarter, you sell it for 25 cents. That's a pretty high margin. I don't know if I've even done anything that like compares.
Right. Yeah. That's really funny because I had a similar story too. I was selling gum. My father worked downtown Manhattan. And there was a place they called the Job Lot where they had all kinds of closeout merchandise, and they had Hubba Bubba chewing gum for 10 cents.
Oh, Hubba Bubba. It came in the Ziploc, the little metal. It was like a metal fold over pack, right? Like it had a foil.
I think this was even earlier than that, Mike. I think I'm just a little bit older than you, but it was just a standard like little square piece of gum in a pack. But I was able to buy them for about 10 cents each and then sell them for 25 cents. So I didn't have quite the margins that you did. You were making twice.
Interesting. We started in the exact same place.
Yeah. Interesting. And
selling gum.
Yeah. Exactly. And I
hear it's a sticky business.
It is. And I'll tell you how it got real sticky is I was bringing in about each box had like 20 packs in it. And I brought in like 3 boxes, so about 60 packs of gum a day. And I was bringing it in, and like at the lunch table, like all the other kids were coming and spending their lunch money buying gum from me. And the school didn't like it. And they brought me up to the dean's office, had me empty my pockets. And I remember the dean, Dean Christensen, behind his sunglasses, like, "You're a very enterprising young man, Mr. Goldstein." And basically, they had me agree to not sell gum in school anymore, and they gave me back my money and the gum that was left, which was
the same thing happened to me. I got in trouble for selling gum. I think they thought that I was selling weed, and I'm like, "No, it's gum." And they're like, there was so much money in because I didn't want to put my money anywhere in the house because I was afraid my brothers or my parents would find the money. Right. So I would turn it into cash instead of quarters. And I just didn't know where else to put it. Mm-hmm. So then when these 2 guys figured out like that I was carrying all this cash, they tried to take my bag from me. And dude, that just wasn't happening, which ended up getting us into the principal's office. And then they bring this police officer, I guess, like that it works the campus, into the room, scares the what out of all the kids.
Yeah.
And they're like, "So you're just selling gum?" I'm like, "Yeah." I didn't even know what else I would be selling. I'm like, "What else would I be selling?"
Right. Well, in my case, they knew exactly what I was selling, and the problem is that kids were spending their lunch money on it, and in New York City, lunches are heavily subsidized. And so if you're spending $1 on your lunch, they're getting whatever, like $3. And so they were losing out significantly when kids didn't buy things from the lunch counter. So they weren't happy about that. But yeah, so it is funny. We started out with very similar beginnings. Although, like I said, you had twice the gross profit as I did.
Hey, it's all about where you get your supply, right?
All right, cool. Yes, that's true. Let's leave that there. Now, so that was
I
your
like to call that supply chain optimization. Now that we've grown older and wiser, now
yeah.
we have better labels for it, right?
Right. But here's the thing, and this is just what it shows the value of an entrepreneurial network. If we were connected back then, you could have connected me with that better deal. 5 cents, turn it into a quarter, rather than my what I thought was a good deal, 10 cents, turn it into a quarter. So this is where networking with other entrepreneurs can be beneficial.
Well, and I would have done that for you, Rich.
I know.
I might not have done it for everybody, but for you, I definitely would have seen the value in making sure you had the hookup.
Especially since I was in New York and you were in Florida, it's like we could divide geographic territories because we weren't in direct competition.
Now we've gone national.
Yeah,
starting to take over the Eastern national region.
Exactly. And so, again, the benefits of networking with other entrepreneurs, which we'll circle back to in a minute. But then from there, so from those humble beginnings, selling candy in school, tell me about some of the kind of the bigger ventures that you did when you
yeah. I mean, that really rolled over into, I opened up what do you call it, a lawn service, and then I got a job from a lawn service. I got a job at McDonald's, which was interesting because they put me as the guy taking the order on the drive-through. And the person would come through and I would take the order. And it was like, literally, I'm 14, because that was as early as you could get a job there. You could work a certain amount of hours from between 14 and 15. Then at 16, you could work more hours. But that was on Treasure Island in Florida here. And they would come through, and I had this voice at 14. Like, it was wild. And they would come through, and then I would, be like, hey, let me take your order. I take their order. They'd come around. There's like, hey, where's the guy that took my order? And then I would be like, I'm the guy. And then they would be like, holy cow, are you serious? There's this little 14-year-old stick figure, right? And then this massive, like, you'd think there's a 300-pound dude behind the, which was cool. But so, I got a little taste of what it was like to have a real job versus just kind of pioneering. Right. And then, went through kind of doing the whole bag boy thing. And then, you get out of school, and all my buddies went off to college. And I went off to work, got a job at Home Depot, one of the first couple stores that had opened up in the Atlanta-based company. We started in Atlanta and then obviously spread. They're all over the place now. But I was instrumental in opening up those stores. I was just a go-getter, a hustler. Like, I'd work. I did a few things. I worked out, and tried to find some good dates if I could. But so went from really doing like just Herculean effort work at Home Depot, setting up stores, started my own tile business. Dude, I thought I hit the jackpot. I was doing like tile for $7 a square foot. And that's pretty heavy in the Atlanta market. And, so I started kind of making like real tangible money, but it was just a lot of work, Rich. And I knew that I needed to use my brain at a certain point. You got to get a little education, and you got to make sure that you're equipped. And one thing that stuck out in my mind, Rich, is somebody told me, I've always kind of hung out with people who were older, especially when I was young. One of the guys said, look, specialized education. Actually, they said, for guys like you, specialized education. And I think what he meant was, you don't necessarily have the support to go through a traditional route. So I did. I chose a school where I could go through about 36 months of specialized education in the software, programming, networking, Microsoft, Cisco, Adobe, Hewlett Packard, like that entire. Rich, see what this is right here? It's a keyboard.
Yep.
I registered for this program and had never even I didn't even have a computer, never messed around with a computer, nothing. So I went in about as green as you could possibly get. And then I came out on the other side. It was right there at Y2K. Came out on the other side where even my instructors are having to get recertified because we're going across that Y2K threshold and everything is being reinvented. So I came out the other side of Y2K with the latest, greatest certifications, 14 different certifications in the industry that almost nobody had. It was wild, just timing thing. Timing is a big deal in life, right? So because I was on that forefront, I ended up landing a job at a training center that was working for the Air Force, Chase Bank, big corporate companies. And we would train their leads, their department heads, their managers, recertify them and send them back out into their tech departments at these companies. So, I got a feeling of what it was like to be a professional, going from basically nothing to getting a little education, figuring out what it's like to do your own thing, and then getting a job where you dress nice, you show up, you do something professional in air conditioning. It was like, is this what it's all about? I'm like, man, it's gotta be better than this, right? So you're getting paid like $75,000 a year. They take child support out, which I ended up having a child at like 19, 20 years old. And, it was a little underwhelming. I felt like a professional, but I didn't feel like I was really doing anything substantial other than supporting somebody else's company, right? So here's what happened, Rich. A real estate investor that was part of my kind of personal community says, Mike, have you ever thought about buying your own house? You got a great job. You've got great credit. Have you ever thought about buying your own house? I said, of course. Of course I thought about it. We never owned one growing up, but I'd like to own one someday. He goes, well, you can do it pretty easy. And he took me out, showed me 3 houses. I said, okay, I'll take that one. So I bought this house for $62,000. What he didn't realize is growing up, I was the most valuable source of child labor that my dad had. I could do anything with my hands. He didn't know it. He thought I was some dude wearing a suit, teaching people how to, configure their networks or their programs on their computer. But what I'd end up really turning into, I had worked at Home Depot and put, what the tool corral is in Home Depot. It's where they have all the tools, right? I had one of the best of everything. People had come, they had bought it, they had returned it, and then I bought it for half price, right? So I stored that inventory away just as kind of a security blanket in case I ever had to do manual labor. Well, I get this house, brother, and I got it for 62. I sold it for 154. Okay. And literally, like, I just ripped it apart, put it back together, made a bunch of money, turned around and said, hey, why am I working this job? Why don't I do more of these houses? Like as many as I can, as fast as I can. And we ended up I built a system around it. I meshed my technical background and my organizational skills and my process skills into a process that at the beginning was a manual process. Then it turned into a little automation, a little access database. Then it turned into a website and a platform. And before I knew it, we had done a couple hundred properties, and I had landed myself out in Silicon Valley, San Jose to be specific. And I'm sitting across the table from SAP and Oracle, and they're looking at my platform, trying to figure out, how do we get involved? That was kind of my first big, sit down at the table. That was my first big boy conversation where really I was kind of out of my league.
Wow. Fascinating. And so you brought it all together. I mean, you brought the software training together with the house flipping that you were doing. You created a process that got the attention of people kind of, I guess, in the next level people who you
what it was there was this gentleman, this older gentleman, his name was John, and John actually put me in touch with 2 leads at SAP and Oracle. And he said, look, you need to go demonstrate your platform to them. We were the first web-based version of a short sale processing engine that was integrated with NetDirector that would literally shove a file from the end user to the decision maker at the servicer or foreclosure attorney. It was powerful stuff. And then we would throw a valuation and an REO market analysis through LPS Hansen Quality, which would say, basically, if you don't take this short sale, you're going to end up with this REO that's worth less. So we're actually offering you a better deal, right? And it was amazing. But at the end of the day, sitting across the table and getting a deal structured like that was really something that was out of my league. And the guy that got me there, it was just a relationship that I think was a fan of mine and wanted to help me move down the line, right? So it comes back to relationships. It is who you know. It really is. Now we took that business, Rich, and we took it from, zero to the moon. And then we learned a very valuable business lesson. It's called, there is competition out there.
Right.
And people will knock you off and they will give it away for free. And as fast as you got into business, you can go out of business.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting. People think, I got something that's going to last. No, nothing lasts forever, right? Nothing lasts forever. And that's why I think the relationship side of things is so important, because when you look around at, say, board of advisors, you see all these companies. You see all these owners, these founders, the investors, you see the CEOs, the creators, the decision makers. And what people think is it's Rich with his company, or it's Jimmy with his company, or it's Carrie with her company. No, it's about the person. You know why? Because we're creators, we're founders. And if that doesn't work, we're going to figure out the next thing that will. As well as anybody, you're in the patent business.
Right.
You're right there on the front end of all the innovation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And so bringing together creative people, then I guess there's synergy that gets created by bringing together a bunch of people that are used to creating solutions and can help each other, not just from their unique skill sets, because a lot of times it's like what I have is what you need or what you've been looking for, but it's also just the very nature of being creative people is that we tend to create solutions. And my
totally.
And
when that actually ended up expiring, the first thing I did is went to somebody that I really respected. I said, hey, we had a great run. We, blew up a bunch of merchant accounts by selling too much, too fast. But at the end of the day, the competition, the Walmart in the industry figured out a way to produce something similar and give it away for free. And hey, there goes our entire, value proposition, right? So I went to another relationship and I said, look, we've learned how to really build something from a business standpoint online. Who should I be talking to in the industry? They put me with Adobe. Adobe had a platform called Business Catalyst, and they put me with the founder, and we actually did a premium partner arrangement with them. And then we took that Adobe relationship and we went nationwide and then expanded into Australia with a partnership out of Australia. And we did thousands of instances of online business creation, implementations. It was everything from shopping carts to customer journeys to member zones to the front end, the back end. It was nuts. But that's where I met all these entrepreneurs, the CEOs, the founders, the owners. And over a period of time, think about this, you're building their business. And that was at a point where people were going into business online, or they were taking their brick and mortar business and getting it online for more exposure, getting them to rank on Google and Google Maps and the whole thing. So it was interesting. Like every time you kind of really need something, there's a relationship there that you should be able to turn to, right? And I think that's kind of the essence or fabric of what you and I are doing with BA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so then let's talk a bit about that, so you went from kind of just having this big Rolodex of entrepreneurs and people that you connected with to create solutions to each other and for each other. And how did you kind of formally bring it into a group? And was BA the first group like this that you created, or was there a predecessor?
So that's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question, because a lot of these organizations or groups are really kicked off poorly, run poorly, and they're treated as quarterly events only. And I actually joined one back in, I think it was 2008, 2009. It's the only one I've ever joined. And I was enthusiastic about it because in my mind, I had thought it was going to be a certain way. And it didn't really turn out in my mind, in reality, like I had assumed it was going to be in my mind. So I kind of became disinterested in a mastermind style conversation, just because I didn't have a great experience, right? So I as I was developing these relationships, and over a period of time, Rich, when you do a build out for somebody online, they're on your platform. There's only so much you can do. You're not going to go sell them another platform unless maybe they start another business, but you have a valuable relationship there that you could do more with. You just have to figure out how to do more with it. And what I was not wanting to do, I didn't want to sell them another like tech solution or another product in that sense. I wanted to have a higher level conversation with them. You take a big guy in the auto industry. How did you get there? What are you looking to do? There was a desire to bring something more meaningful than just a transaction to the table, but a real conversation, a real relationship. And I always had this fascination about going through my phone and my database and pulling like a net through it and kind of cultivating who are the best relationships that I've had over the years. Like that was just a kind of a back of the mind thought that just simmered in the back of my head. What would that look like? And, I never really put any formal thought into, what I would do with all of them. But what transpired is we did a build out for a client, Jason, and he still to this day runs a mastermind for real estate investors. And when I saw, because I was on site working with them. We did all their rebrand, their physical posturing, their online presence, everything. So I got to learn the model, the mechanics of the model that he runs. And I think he runs one of the best ones, even still to this day in the nation. But I got to see what that would look like if it was really well organized. And he was also extremely encouraging on, Mike, you should take all your best relationships and customers and clients and put them into an organization like he had built for real estate investors, but I should do it for entrepreneurs, right? Mm-hmm. And, there was a big hesitation, Rich, just because my previous experience was not a good one.
Right.
But I saw what it could look like if operated, with integrity and process and systems and, designed to kind of win from the beginning, not just kind of flop together, and if we won, it was kind of by default. It was more of it was really run well. So yeah. Jason is the one that encouraged me for about a year to even take action on it. And I wasn't even sure exactly what to do. I had to, in my brain, when I create, I've got to see it. I've got to be clear about it. I've got to, there's a formulation in the mind that takes place, and then you put the action behind it. And it took me a minute to get that really solid vision of what are we even going to call it? What is it going to look like? How's it going to behave? And then I ended up negotiating boardofadvisors.com, the URL. I ended up acquiring that, and I told Jason, and he starts laughing. He's like, dude, I know how you operate now. He goes, it's game on now. And it kind of was. That was like 7 years ago.
Yeah. And it's fascinating. And like, so in essence, though, too, he was asking you to go all in. It's like he was saying that, like, you put all of your best stuff in this, not like kind of try it out and hedge and maybe make like create an email and send it to some list and like see what your response is. He's like, take all of your best people, your best contacts, and like those are the people that you're going to invite to it. And so that's freaking scary to say, like, all in. I'm basically putting all of my eggs in this basket, and if it flops, then everything flops, right? And so, but I think that requirement is part of what made it great, is that you had to put it all, you had to be all in from day one.
The funny part is yeah. Not only was I all in mentally, like it took me a minute. I like had to figure out what is the brand, and I wanted the brand to be so relevant, but not, I didn't want it to scream mastermind. I wanted it to scream like legitimate business advisors, thought leaders, decision makers, people with competence, right? Not a goofy mastermind where you show up and you slap each other on the back, but something of real value. What we ended up doing, Rich, is as from a tech side, we built out our entire platform before we even hosted the first BA meeting. They didn't even know it was the first meeting, Rich. So we sliced down to about 60 names that we thought that, quite frankly, some of them even intimidated me to pick up the phone and say, I've got something special for you. I want you to be there. I mean, you had to put your big boy pants on some days for some of these conversations, right. But I'd earned their trust and I'd earned their relationship. And I think they said, you know what, Mike, this sounds like it's really important to you. So I'm going to support you on this. I'm going to come out. Let's see what you got. Right. So it was one of those things where, yes, I still had other businesses, investments, but this was something that I thought would mate really well with what we had previously established, right? And then it would open up new doors, not only for members, but for us as an organization. I mean, we've made a lot of investments into the member base with their companies and their products. And, it's been a really, really rewarding venture and ride. And I think we're probably doing one of the most valuable things you could ever do, and that's investing in people and not things.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I personally love it. I mean, I've been in the group now for a bit less than a year. Been to several of the quarterly meetings that we have, and it really shines above all the groups that I've been in by far, and. And one of the great things, beyond the quarterly meetings is the platform and the systems that you've created where you actively connect people. Like it's not, okay, so if the meetings happen every few months, what happens in between? There's a business, your business happening that whole time whose sole purpose is to create value for the members. So like you're constantly connecting people together, making introductions, and just serving your membership. So I really applaud what you've done. I think it's awesome, and I'm glad you got to talk about it here today.
Well, Rich, we love you, and I think you bring something extremely special to what we're doing as well. You're sitting in a room of innovators and owners that are always looking for what is that next thing, and how do I protect and create my spot in those categories, right? The relationship with you and you being able to work from a patenting and trademarking standpoint, being able to protect these owners and founders and creators, even the investors that are also working with the CEOs, you're doing something really special that allows them to put the pedal down, really, right? Because sometimes, like even this product here, starting out, they had a little bit of a challenge with a competitor, and they figured out how to get their trademarks and patents and everything to give them that opportunity to really go out and dominate the market without wondering, is somebody going to just knock me off and dilute my opportunity? So we love what you bring to the table, because you make these companies better. You truly do. You make them better and you protect them. And there's a lot that it takes to be that founder and have that leadership on the front end and have that innovation. But no matter how good you are at that, if you aren't covering your, CYA, cover your butt, right? All of that can be eroded with legal issues and competition. I mean, it takes, what do they say? It takes a
village.
It takes a village. It takes a village, right? And I see that, we're kind of a pretty special village.
Yeah, I agree. And, I encourage people to look into board of advisors as part of their journey of growing as an entrepreneur beyond just yourself siloed in working out your own problems to connecting with other entrepreneurs that can help you grow something bigger and better. So, I highly encourage people to check out the Board of Advisors, but in particular, Mike, if people want to learn more about you, learn more about Board of Advisors, how do they go about doing so?
Yeah, I think the best way to do that is please go to boardofadvisors.com. Poke around. The site is always being updated with new information with guys like Rich here. And if you want to jump on a call with me, just go to callwithmike.com. We take a big stance and a lot of pride into the members that we enroll into the organization. And, I actually have a personal conversation with every single one of them as they come on board, just to make sure it's the right fit with the right synergies, the right mindset. The spirit of contribution to each other is really important. And, I speak with some of the wildest, craziest opportunities and companies, and, just it's nuts. I think even if it's not a membership call, it can be a valuable call. I make a lot of connections just on some of those ones that aren't the best fit for BA, but it turns out to be a really valuable conversation for the person that we're on the phone with. So, Rich, I appreciate all your time, buddy. I think we had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun. It's always great talking with you, Mike. And I appreciate you taking the time to be on this podcast today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rich.
Thanks for listening to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at innovationsandbreakthroughs.com, and we'll see you next time.